And also with us, Mariah Goode, who may know more about housing and related issues than anybody else on the peninsula. Mariah has been the director of the Door County Land Use Services Department, formerly the Planning Department, but they were like, that's not too long, let's add some words to that, since 2006, and has worked in the land use planning field in Door County since 1996. She has been a member of the Door County Economic Development Corporation Attainable Housing Committee since 1999 and is a board member of the newly re-established Door County Housing Partnership. I'm guessing we'll talk about that tonight. She is professionally and or personally involved in a few other local housing related initiatives, as well as a couple of other organizations not focused on housing, believe it or not. Mariah lives in Bailey's Harbor with her husband and 2 sons in what is these days considered a very small house.
All right, so housing in Door County. I want to start with some definitions because there's a lot of terms that get thrown around, and if you read the Pulse last week, you'll know that some of these were in there. So affordable housing at the individual level is, as Amber said, that's considered 30% of your gross household income. But obviously, households vary widely in terms of their levels. So at a community level, what it means is housing that a household of median income can either rent or purchase for no more than 28 to 30% of their income. And the clause that's after that is exclusive of other debt, which HUD does not consider. They just say 30% of your gross income. Median income is the household that's in the middle. If you made a list of all the households in the community, the one that's in the middle is the median. Half the people above make more money, the people below make less. It's also called area median income, so you'll see that acronym scattered throughout some of these slides. The median household income in Door County in 2016 was about $54,000. And you'll also hear the phrase workforce housing, and that is housing that's affordable to people or to households that earn between roughly 60 and 120% of that area median income. So when I use those phrases, that's what I mean. So what exactly are Door County's affordable housing issues? As Amber said, this is not just a Door County problem, although we do have some things that make us at least a little bit unique. We have a long-standing shortage of both rental units generally and housing for seasonal workers. We have problems with quality of both of those types of housing. We have a second home market that drives up the housing and land costs, as well as that increased tourism leading to conversion to transient housing of some of the housing that possibly could otherwise be affordable to locals. We have building code and zoning code requirements that make things difficult. I think Miles is going to ask me about that later. We have a lack of land that's designated for multifamily or for denser housing types, and that is in somewhat part due to the lack of public infrastructure that we have in the county. Construction costs have always been higher in Door County because we're a peninsula. We're not on the way to anywhere. Everything that, for the most part, that we're building with has to come in from the outside. And it's more profitable to develop high-end housing. And we have the corollary problem in Door County now, which is we have a real shortage in the construction industry. When the Great Recession hit, we lost a huge percentage of our construction workforce, and it has not come back since. This is just to give you a visual of the areas in the county that are served by public sewer. All those red splotches, you can see that it's not really a whole lot of land in the county. When you add public water on top of that, that's what we're left with. And that's why you see much of the denser and apartment development that's happening in the county happening in Sturgeon Bay and Sister Bay. Those are the only places that have public sewer and water, except for a tiny little part down in the town of Forestville in Maplewood. So other issues that are related in Door County, we do have a lot of jobs here and a lot of jobs that are open right now, but employment in this county is not as varied as it is in other areas. Sometimes when someone gets a job offer here, if they've got a spouse, it's hard for their spouse to find an appropriate job here. We do have that seasonal tourism economy. We have issues with both the availability and the cost of transportation and daycare in the county. We have declining school enrollment, which I think Miles is the one that first popped this idea into my head, that in the high schools on the mainland, we're down 488 students from what we were, I think, when Miles said when he graduated, and all those, probably most of those people had jobs and worked, the summer and throughout part of the school year. And we have an aging population. And we are old. In 2000, we are. And I used to think I was young, but I don't think I qualify anymore. So in 2010, Door County was already old compared to the state. The projections are that by 2040, we're going to be really old compared to the state. And Wisconsin is actually old compared to the nation. Oh, and I should say, I'm gonna have a lot of numbers up here, and we're gonna post this presentation, I think, on the Crest website, and we're starting a new website in my office that'll be on there as well. So who exactly is affected by this in Door County? I don't know how many of you are familiar with the United Way study called ALICE, which stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. It's a 17-state United Way collaborative project. One of the states that is included is Wisconsin. And what it does is it takes a look at people that are not in poverty, but who live above poverty, but who are struggling because of either housing costs or whatever else they're paying for. So they're one mishap away from potentially being homeless or having to make really difficult decisions about how they spend their money. So what the ALICE study does is it defines the survival budget up to what they consider a household stability budget, and listed on the screen here are all the things that they consider. So it's not just housing, but it's childcare, food, savings, transportation, technology, et cetera. So those ALICE families are living on what's known as a survival budget. So this is comparing Door County to Wisconsin with the ALICE study, 2010 on the left-hand columns and 2016 on the right-hand columns. So we're better off than Wisconsin overall. But if you'll notice, our numbers are increasing, whereas Wisconsin's are staying pretty flat. The dark blue bands on the bottom of all four columns are the poverty level people within the county and within the state. And then those brighter turquoise blue bands are the people that fall into that ALICE, so just above poverty, but not considered stable incomes. And that number has increased in Door County by 4% in the last 6 years. There's a range. When the ALICE study is done, they calculate everything from a single person household, single adult, to a household that has 2 adults plus an infant and a preschooler. So that's what those ranges are that you see as far as what the ALICE budgets are. It's a single adult up to 2 adults with an infant and a preschooler, which are the most expensive households because of childcare. So what can people of median income in Door County afford? So according to HUD, the median household, which would have $54,000 in income, can afford $1,350 a month for their housing costs. And that's supposed to cover everything. That's supposed to cover either rent and utilities or mortgage and everything else as well. Realistically, when you look at the ALICE numbers, the breakdowns, again, those ranges that you see are from a single adult household up to 2 adults with an infant and a preschool. ALICE has defined what it thinks monthly income is for the survival level and the stability level, and you can see there's a dramatic difference between those 2 sets of numbers. And the bottom row is what they allocate for housing within those, the survival budget and the stability budget. And obviously, even the top of the stability budget isn't anywhere near what HUD actually thinks you should be able to afford for housing in Door County. So what do houses sell for in Door County? So this is statistics from the Door County Multiple Listing Service from last year. On the top are all the housing units that were sold in the county, broken down by Northern Door, Southern Door, and Sturgeon Bay, by number of sales, average price, median price. What it makes the most sense to look at, again, is a median, not an average. Averages can be easily skewed by either really high or really low numbers. The median is whatever was right in the middle. And what I had the Multiple Listing Service do for me was to break out on the bottom the housing units that do not have water views or waterfront, because those obviously skew numbers even further. So those numbers on the bottom are what I'm going to talk about on the next large handful of slides as far as median prices. So in Northern Door last year, the median price for a home was $250,000. In Sturgeon Bay, it was $148,500, and in Southern Door, it was $163,500. Now, last year, there were only 61 homes sold across the entire county that were between $60,000 and $125,000, and that's the price range where we really need houses. And then there were another 146 that were sold that were between $125,000 and just under $200,000. So my planner in my office has done the bulk of this research. I need to give Becky Kerwin some credit. So what we have here are those median household prices, and she calculated out, based on the assumptions you see on the bottom there, what your mortgage payment would be every month if you put a 10% down payment, 30-year mortgage, et cetera. So these are the figures that you'd be looking at for what you would need to spend every month to buy one of these median homes. We did use 10% down, but I should note that according to the banker that Becky talked to, that in Door County, workforce households are far more likely to probably put 5% down. So this is a little bit overly optimistic as far as potentially what their mortgage payments would be. So now let's compare some Door County entry-level worker incomes to what it would cost to buy one of those houses. So these are the 8 professions that I'm gonna walk you through. I'm gonna go through the patrol officer one in detail, and then we can move pretty quickly through the rest of them. So a patrol officer has an entry-level wage of $56,160. If you divide that by 12 months, you get the monthly income that you see there. And what we've done in each of these next slides is we have a no debt column and a student loan debt column. So the student loan payment for a incoming patrol officer that had a student loan would be roughly $108, and that's based on the average student loan debt for an associate's degree, which is what's required in order to be a patrol officer. So if the person doesn't have any debt, then their monthly spending budget is what you see there. If they do have that loan debt, we've subtracted that out. Then we're using the HUD formula of multiplying those numbers by 30%. So we see with the 2 stars there, that's what HUD thinks that person can afford for housing every month. And then we've got the number minus the student loan debt. Now, before I get into the bottom numbers, one could reasonably argue that an entry-level employee should not expect to be able to afford a median-priced home. And that's maybe a fair argument. But what I would say is that the mortgage payment gap/surplus figures that you see on here, the gaps are all in red, are actually very, very conservative, and here's why. So the monthly spending budget and that resultant 30% housing figure that we calculate out based on how the Housing and Urban Development Agency does it is based on pre-tax dollars. So we did the same thing, so as to not make our numbers look really wacky compared to theirs. So those are pre-tax monthly spending budgets and housing budgets. And then as I noted a few slides ago, most families, according to the banker that we talked to locally, are not actually putting 10% down when they buy a house. So these numbers would probably be higher as far as what they'd actually be paying every month. And also remember that that 30% is supposed to cover everything. This is just the mortgage payments that we're talking about, comparing to those Northern Central and Southern Door houses. For something to be considered affordable for HUD, that 30% is supposed to cover everything. Your utilities, your taxes, your homeowner's insurance, everything. The numbers that we have here, even though we're calling it median home sales, remember that we're excluding those waterfront and water view homes. And these are actually quite a bit lower. The figures for those homes are quite a bit lower than the actual median for the 3 areas of the county. And then finally, so the 5th reason that I think these numbers are actually really conservative is we're only taking into account student loan debt. We did not try and figure out what car payment debt might be or what credit card payment debt might be, and those are becoming fairly ubiquitous. So our patrol officer cannot afford to buy a house in a median priced house, non-waterfront, non-water view, in Northern Door. He or she might be able to buy something in Central or Southern Door depending on what level of debt they have, and then all those other factors that I was talking about there. Is that part making sense to everybody? Okay, so let's, and this was the top of the incomes, if you remember the 8 jobs that we looked at. So this is a registered nurse. This would be somebody that works at like the hospital or at a skilled nursing facility. This isn't somebody that works in a clinic. Same thing, can't afford to live in Northern Door. Central and Southern Door, possibly they might be able to buy a median home. This is for a county employed social worker or nurse. Again, Northern Door is a problem. Elementary teachers. I should say for this entry-level wage, we actually did an average of the school districts. There was a pretty big difference between like what Gibraltar pays compared to what Southern Door pays. So we just averaged them, but it doesn't really matter because this teacher can't afford to live anywhere. Welder, cutter, solderers, there are lots of jobs open right now in the manufacturing realm in Sturgeon Bay, and those entry-level wages, none of those people can afford to buy a home in Door County. Construction laborer, same thing. Hotel, motel clerk, it keeps getting worse when you look at the numbers. And cooks, which we all rely on because we all like to go out to eat. So that's how, and here's a summary chart so you can see it's mostly red, and Northern Door is completely red for all of those jobs. So they can rent, let's try that. So the top row here is the housing and urban development, what they call the fair market rate for Door County. I'm not entirely clear on how they figure out what the fair market rate is, but those are the numbers that they have for efficiency up through 4-bedroom apartments. So I didn't do a systematic, statistical analysis, but I went online on apartmentfinder.com. 21 of the 30 listings didn't have any availability, so I didn't even pay any attention to them. I just looked at the 9 listings that had availability, and this is what's out there as of 2 weeks ago. So nobody in the county has any efficiency units or 4-bedroom, and there's only a couple places in Sturgeon Bay that have 3-bedroom units. Everybody has 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, but in Sister Bay there were only 2-bedroom units. And you might notice that none of those numbers look like the numbers that are up above there that HUD thinks is the fair market rate. I think the way they calculate the fair market rent, I think the way they calculate that is based on some formula related to household size and configuration and poverty levels, et cetera. So some of these people might be able to rent, so let's check that out. So what we did was just look at 1-bedroom apartments in the city. There weren't any 1-bedroom apartments in Sister Bay, so we're just looking at the city, because we're just going to assume that all our entry-level people are single and moving up here for the first time or coming back. So it looks pretty good for these patrol officer, nurse, county employed social worker, or nurse. They can afford to find an apartment if there's actually one available, which is a big problem. Still looks pretty good for the teacher, the people, the welder, cutter, solder, construction labor. They might have to go with the lower priced apartments, but they could, if they can find one, they would be able to rent one. And then when you get down to the clerk and the cook, they can't afford the rents either. And what we did with these figures was the same thing that we did with the home mortgage. So the no debt means that they were lucky enough to not have any student loan debt. The with debt takes into consideration those student loan figures. But again, remember, we're using all pre-tax dollars when we look at what is considered to be their monthly housing budget, and we're not taking into consideration car payments or credit card debt. So what are we doing about all this? As Miles said, there's been a Door County Economic Development Corporation Housing Committee for almost 20 years, and I've been on it that whole time. We've had summits, we've had studies, we've done inventories, we've had community development block grant funds assisting with down payments and other home repairs. We've got a lot of agencies working on the problem in the county. Municipalities have been working on it. We've had developers, realtors, employers, everybody trying to figure out what to do. There has been a lot that has happened, but it's probably not stuff that you really know about or are that familiar with. And there's a lot of new stuff going on. So DC EDC commissioned a study which was completed in early 2019 to study the problem. They had a symposium shortly thereafter to look at what to do next. We've got towns starting to get into the mix now. Previously it was just the incorporated areas that were trying to figure out what to do and talking about what to do. We've been having some interesting conversations with NeighborWorks Green Bay, which is a nonprofit in Green Bay that does a lot of really great housing development work. As Miles said in his introduction about me, we have reinvigorated what we call the Housing Trust, Door County Housing Partnership. That's a tool that's been missing in Door County. It is a separate nonprofit that can partner with any willing municipality, developer, private landowner, any of these other nonprofits or agencies that are working on housing. And it's a way to make sure that the housing that's getting developed, if it's in the trust realm, will stay affordable and for workforce forever, because that's one of the problems in Door County. You can maybe figure out how to get somebody into a house, but then when they turn around and sell it, it might not go to somebody that's actually workforce. And then there's also the Interfaith Prosperity Coalition, which has done a great project recently of videography and still life photographs and narratives of 8 people in Door County that have struggled to find adequate housing. And the kickoff premiere for that is going to be May 5th. And Diana here in the front row has invitations if you're interested in going to that. It'll show that there's a 20-minute video, a 6-minute video, and then there's 8 banners that have photographs and stories for people to try and give a human edge to the story, because that's definitely one thing that's been missing in the county. So what did that housing study come up with? Everybody wanted to know, why did you need a study? We all knew there was a problem, but the reason that we wanted to have a study done was to be able to actually quantify the problem. And I think the results that people came up with, or that the AECom came up with, are kind of frightening. We asked them, because we know there are differences, to look at northern, central, and southern door as 3 distinct geographic areas when they did this study. And within each area, we asked them to look at year-round workforce housing, year-round senior housing, not like assisted living, but living independently, and then seasonal housing beds. And this is what they came up with. So they estimate that as of 2017, we were already short 470 rental units based on the growth in jobs in the county in that time frame. And we're going to need another 110 between now and 2023. The rents need to be between $500 to $1,000, with most of them between that $500 and $800 range. Owner-occupied units, they didn't try and estimate what we were short, but they say that we need 70 between northern and central door by 2023. And as I alluded to earlier, most of those need to be in that $60,000 to $124,000, well, $125,000 range, and most of those units need to be single-family homes. Again, Southern Door was determined to not have a problem at this point. Senior housing, they didn't do breakouts in any detail about prices, but this is what they estimate would be eaten up for rental apartments and owner-occupied homes for northern, central, and southern door, and those are some large numbers. And then finally, seasonal housing, which is defined as beds for people that are here seasonally. Again, they estimated that we had a shortage from 2010 to 2017 based on job growth of over 450 units, and that we're going to need another 115 or so before 2023. We asked them to come up with strategies, and they had some interesting takes on things and some good analysis, but they didn't come up with anything completely brand new that had never occurred to any of us before, and they definitely didn't come up with any money that we didn't know about. So specific actions, again, some interesting ideas and takes on things, not necessarily anything that's any different than what we were talking about pursuing anyway. And some of the things that they recommended doing, we just don't have the capacity to do, or don't think that it would make that big of a difference in the provision of housing, which is what we're really trying to do. So zoning, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this because I think this will probably be part of the conversation after Verge talks, but we do allow a lot of things already in county zoning, and I'm obviously much more familiar with county zoning than I am with the city or the 4 villages or the 2 towns in Southern Door that have their own zoning, because county zoning only covers 9 out of the 14 towns. We do have a lot of options depending on what zoning district you're in. You can put a single family home almost everywhere. You could have a secondary dwelling unit with it. You could have accessory residences in the commercial districts. We do allow for duplexes and multifamily developments in a fair number of districts. We allow conservation subdivisions where you can make smaller lots as long as you're leaving open space, and you actually get to do extra smaller lots if you're dedicating that open space. And we do allow campgrounds in a lot of places, and I keep hearing campgrounds bubbling up to the surface as a possible solution for some of the seasonal housing problems. This is what a secondary dwelling unit would look like. So just like an apartment above your garage, it could be attached or detached. Accessory residence, again, apartment, but in this case, above a commercial use. And then conservation subdivision. So on the left is kind of your typical cookie cutter subdivision. On the right would be your cluster or conservation subdivision where the lots are a lot smaller, which means you're spending a lot less on roads and infrastructure and things like that. Continuing on with allowances that we already have in place, we do have people talk a lot about our larger lot sizes in agricultural districts. We actually do have a lot of options in the agricultural districts to create smaller lots. You can either break off your existing single family home for older homes. You can create small vacant lots if it's for your farm employee or your immediate family. We allow manufactured homes for farm workers or disabled dependents, and the disabled dependents is almost in any zoning district, and that's in addition to your house. We allow seasonal dwellings for agricultural production and processing workers in every district that allows agriculture. Boarding houses, tiny homes are kind of iffy. It depends on whether they're going to be on wheels or not as to where and how we allow them. And then we have rules about how much of your land can be covered in impervious surfaces, and those allowances have gone up quite a bit in recent years. So what do we still have to do? We, the County Land Use Services Department, are working on amending our own ordinance. We've volunteered to work with the city and the villages on amending their codes. We're also putting together information for all of the municipalities about land that they own that maybe could be rezoned or repurposed for housing. And so we're going to be working with any municipalities that are interested. And then we're overhauling our own regulations for multifamily developments, possibly minimum home size, some of the seasonality language, and looking at providing more density incentives if a developer is providing affordable housing, employee housing, and or using green building practices. So in addition to reviewing and revising maps and ordinances, hopefully all across the county, we've been having, I know the Economic Development Corporation has heard from probably, I think, 18 or 20 developers since that housing study came out with people that are interested in trying to do something. We're working on reestablishing that nonprofit housing trust. You've got at least 2 board members here tonight, including myself. We're having a lot of community discussions and meetings. There's 3 of them coming up in May. You may have started seeing publicity. There's gonna be one in Sister Bay, one in Sturgeon Bay, and one at the Southern Door Schools. If you want dates and times and places, I can give you those. And there's just a lot of meetings and discussion going on to try and identify sites and funds. And one thing that's become very clear in looking at how other areas of the country have addressed this, there's gotta be public money or land going into this. It does not work mathematically for a developer to actually do affordable housing without having land probably either given to them or infrastructure provided for free. All right, now we'll send it off to Virg to talk about individual homes.